I'm Mabel. I can still vividly recall that fateful day when my world came crashing down. It was a Thursday evening, and I had just arrived home earlier than expected. As I unlocked the door, the sound of laughter hit me like a punch in the gut. It was my fiancé, Ryan, and a woman's voice I didn't recognize. I stood there, my hand still on the door handle, the keys digging into my palm. For a split second, I considered turning around and pretending I hadn't heard a thing. But then, I heard Ryan's laugh, that soft, indulgent laugh he reserved only for flirting. I pushed the door open, and the apartment was filled with the smell of garlic and red wine. Candles flickered on the dining table, the very table we had picked out together, where we had planned our wedding seating chart and argued about guest lists. There, sitting across from Ryan, was a woman in a fitted red dress. She looked up first, her face drained of color. Ryan followed her gaze and whispered, "Mabel, you're supposed to be at work." I stayed near the door, my coat still on. "And you," I said calmly, surprising myself with my own composure, "are supposed to be at a client meeting." The woman stood up abruptly. "I should go," she said. "No," I replied, "please stay. I'd really like to know who's having dinner in my home." Ryan finally introduced her as Ava, a co-worker. I nodded slowly. "The Thursday meetings," I stated, not as a question. Ava looked at Ryan, and he looked at me. "It's not what it looks like," Ryan said. I laughed out loud. "Then explain," I demanded, "because from here, it looks like my fiancé is having a romantic dinner with another woman in my apartment while I'm supposed to be working late." Ava quickly interjected, "We're just friends. Friends who light candles, drink wine, and wear date night dresses in someone else's home." I retorted. Ryan then asked if we could talk privately. "Why?" I asked. "Is there something you don't want her to hear?" Ava grabbed her coat. "I'm really sorry. I didn't realize." "You realized," I said quietly. "You just didn't care." She left without another word. I turned to Ryan. "How long?" I asked. He rubbed his face. 3 months. "And how many Thursdays?" I persisted. He hesitated. 5, maybe 6. "You don't know how many times you lied to me?" I said softly. He quickly blurted out, "We didn't sleep together." "I swear." I felt a coldness wash over me. "Oh, so that makes it fine?" I asked. "That's not what I meant," he replied. "Then what did you mean?" I demanded. "My definition of cheating includes secret dinners, lying, and bringing another woman into my home." He started crying, but I felt nothing. "Get out," I said. "What?" he asked. "Pack a bag and leave tonight." "This is my home, too," he argued. "No," I said, looking him in the eye. "It isn't. My name is on the deed. You don't pay rent. You're a guest who overstayed." He packed his things while I sat on the couch in silence. When he left, I poured the wine down the sink and threw the pasta away. Then I scrubbed the table until my hands ached. It all started a few days before. I was in a conference room, pretending to pay attention to quarterly projections when I received a message from an unknown number. It simply said, "You deserve to know he's not being faithful." It was from a co-worker of Ryan's named Lily. She said she was sorry for messaging me like this, but I deserved to know. My first reaction was denial. I thought it could be a jealous co-worker or just office gossip. But there was something about her toned direct, restrained, almost reluctant that made my stomach tighten. I typed back, asking for an explanation. She said she didn't feel comfortable putting everything in writing and just told me to pay attention to Ryan's Thursday late meetings. Ryan had been having these late meetings more often lately. He said it was because of a new project and new responsibilities. I wanted to believe him. We had been together for 4 years and engaged for 8 months. We met at a friend's wedding, bonding over our mutual dislike of the DJ's music. The apartment we lived in was mine. I had bought it years before Ryan moved in, but it had become ours. His coffee machine was on the counter, his jackets hung by the door, and his books were mixed in with mine on the shelves. That night, I didn't confront him. I cooked dinner and asked about his day. He answered vaguely, barely looking up from his laptop. Nothing seemed dramatic enough to justify my growing suspicion. The next day, Wednesday, I told my boss I needed to leave early on Thursday for a dentist appointment. He approved it without question. All day, I felt nauseous. By Thursday afternoon, I texted Ryan that I'd be working late. He replied with a heart emoji, which felt like a threat. After I kicked Ryan out, my phone started buzzing non-stop on Friday morning. There were 17 missed calls and a dozen texts. Some were apologies, some were angry, and some were manipulative, dressed up as heartbreak. I blocked his number without hesitation. I messaged Lily to thank her. She responded right away, saying that most of the people in the office thought what Ryan was doing was wrong. I asked how long people had known. She said it had been a while, but no one wanted to tell me without proof because of office politics. Then, she dropped another bombshell. Ava wasn't the only one hurt. Ryan's ex, Ava, had been involved with someone serious, and they had been circling each other for years. It wasn't just Ryan betraying me, it was a whole web of broken commitments. That day, I boxed up Ryan's things. I didn't do it gently, I did it methodically, like I was clearing out a room after a storm. I wrapped the engagement planning binder in a garbage bag without even opening it. On Saturday morning, Ryan's sister, Sarah, showed up with a friend and a rental SUV. She looked at me like I was the villain. "You're really doing this? Throwing away 4 years over one mistake?" she asked. I corrected her, 3 months, and multiple Thursdays, and a dinner table set for 2 that didn't include me. She said Ryan was devastated. "He should be," I replied. "I'd hate for him to be comfortable." She scoffed, but I knew that lighting candles for another woman and texting me a heart emoji was the real cruelty. Her friend carried the boxes out in silence. Before Sarah left, she turned back and said, "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. People work through worse." I smiled, humorlessly. People who want to be forgiven don't cook pasta for their ex in someone else's home. Tell Ryan I wish him the life he earned. On Monday, I called the wedding venue. My voice shook as I told the coordinator that I needed to cancel my wedding. The deposit was $15,000, but I told her to keep it. It felt like buying my freedom. I also canceled the caterer, the photographer, and the DJ. Each call was like pulling a thread out of a sweater that had already unraveled. That night, my mom called. She had heard from Sarah that Ryan and I had broken up. I told her everything, and she just listened, absorbing the devastation like only a mother can. When I finished, she whispered, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." I automatically said I was okay, but when she asked if I really was, I realized I didn't know what I felt. Ryan tried to contact me through mutual friends, email, and social media, but I blocked everything. 2 weeks after I kicked him out, he showed up at my building. The doorman called to tell me he was downstairs. I told him I wasn't seeing him, even though he said Ryan was crying. I felt nothing but relief. 3 weeks later, I found a 6-page handwritten letter from Ryan in my mailbox. He talked about feeling neglected, how I worked too much, how Ava listened to him in ways I didn't, and how it got out of hand. He said he was in therapy and that he'd cut Ava off. He said I was the love of his life and that he'd do anything for another chance. I tore the letter into pieces and dropped them in the trash. As time passed, the apartment stopped feeling haunted. I moved the furniture, replaced the rug, sold the dining table, and bought a new one. It was smaller and lighter, nothing like the old one. 2 months after the breakup, I finally agreed to meet friends for drinks. At the bar, halfway through my second drink, I heard my name. It was Lily. She was with a couple of coworkers, looking relaxed and happy. She was relieved to see me. We talked about work, life, and how strange it was to be the bearer of truth. I told her she did the right thing and that I just wished someone had told me sooner. She said a few of them had suspected, but that Thursday, she saw Ryan and Ava leave for lunch and not come back for hours, and she couldn't stay quiet anymore. I asked for her number, saying it might be nice to have coffee sometime. She agreed. A few weeks later, Ryan's mother called. She said Ryan wasn't doing well, that he was depressed and barely eating. She asked if I could talk to him. I told her I was sorry he was struggling, but I couldn't talk to him. She said he was trying to change, and I replied that he should change, but not for me, for whoever came next. She accused me of being cruel, but I knew I was just being honest. 4 months later, my life was different, quieter and cleaner. Lily and I stayed in touch and met for coffee a few times. I heard through mutual friends that Ryan was dating again. I hoped he'd learn something. People kept asking if I regretted not trying harder, but my answer was always no. Ryan's actions weren't a moment of weakness, they were months of calculated decisions. The message Lily sent me that Tuesday afternoon hurt, but it saved me from a future that would have eventually destroyed me. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a warning I listened to in time.